as far as concrete is concerned. This track has been around since 1860.
Wow.
So it's been here for a while, because basically what happened is in the early 1800s, this was Spanish territory. And in the 1840s, you had the Mexican-American War. And in 1848, the Guadalupe-Hidalgo Treaty made this officially U.S. territory. And so after that point, that is when the government started sending out expeditions to discover their lands. Now that's southern United States. So there's a big expedition, Lewis and Clark, which you guys have probably heard of. That was the northern track of the country, and that was the early, like, 1820s.
Carmen Sandiego told me about that.
Sweet. Carmen Sandiego?
Yeah, that's where I first learned about Lewis and Clark and Carmen Sandiego.
That's pretty fun. So the southern expedition that was really big was the Edward Fitzgerald Beale. And he's the one who first laid out this track. So this was the famous Beale expedition in 1860. And then he came back twice to lay it out as a wagon. So the Beale wagon route was originally this track and was the main used track across the country. Well, in the late 1800s, there was the New Roads movement, where they started paving highways. So the reason they had roads paved is because to travel this far, before that, it was very difficult, you know, on a dirt road. You know, if it rained, you'd have to camp out on the side of the road for like 3 days to let it dry, because it'd be too thick of mud to get across. So you had to be like your own mechanic. You had to bring supplies and parts for your car. You had to bring camping equipment, you know, everything. You had to bring everything in order to travel across the country. So in 1926, the federal government paved the Beale wagon route as Route 66 as part of their federal highway system. They paved 80,000 miles of highway in concrete, and that was just so it made travel easier. Because there's a few things that happened. First of all, World War I happened, and it was difficult to get military vehicles across the country. So that was a big issue that they had. And then also, during that same time period, we had a huge explosion of car manufacturing for the public. And so a lot more people had cars to drive, and they needed somewhere to go, basically, is why they paved Route 66. So this was the mother road. That's why it's important in history, is because it was the mother road. So what changed it is World War II, at a time period called the Dust Bowl.
Yep.
And so during those time periods, a lot more people started traveling out west, looking for new opportunities, new life, going to California, you know, whatever, and people returning from the war. And so after the war, then you started having your first motels and hotels. And then all of a sudden you started seeing fueling stations and mechanic shops and convenience stores and places like that. So after World War II, the American family vacation started, and that was big. So with the improvement of cars, like you had hot rods and muscle cars, and cars improved and were more fun, Route 66 became more popular. And that was when it was the most popular. It was during the 50s and the 60s, when you had a lot of family vacations and people traveling just to explore and have fun. Because before that, it was just, you know, necessary to get across the country for some reason or other. But then, once they paved it, and after World War II, and they started having little towns that were convenient, they could stop and they didn't have to camp and yada yada. Well, then it became more of a touristy thing. So Route 66 became a touristy highway. And every town like Seligman, Oatman, Peach Springs, Williams, you know, whatever, all across the country, they depended on tourism. They survived and thrived on tourism because of vacationers. And so in 1976, when they paved the new highway, and you know, say for example, Seligman would see about 5,000 to 9,000 cars driving through their town every day. And then the day that the new highway opened up, I-40, that dropped down to about 50 cars per day. So there goes all of their business, and it devastated the highway. And when they paved the new highway, they did not fund the old highway anymore. It wasn't a federal highway. Right now, this is actually called Crookton Road. It's just a regular road, but this is what the original highway was. So anyways, that just destroyed the business of all these towns. Everybody was upset. They had to move. It ruined everything for these towns along Route 66. So in 1985 is when Angel Delgadillo who owns that shop back there. He wasn't there today because there's no one down there. So he's 84 years old now, so he only goes when there's big crowds. Anyways, he's the one who owns that shop. And in '85, he's the one who established the association that had the approval to make it a historic landmark, making it popular again, getting government funding again, bringing the business back. And so now Route 66 is popular again, and you can travel the whole thing. And so that is basically a rough story of what happened to Route 66.